Special Operations, Covert Ops, Espionage, The Team House, with your hosts, Jack Murphy and David Park.
All right, here we are, episode 79. I'm Jack Murphy, here with co-host Dave Park. This is the Team House, I think it's episode 79. And we're here with our guest tonight, Kasper. Kasper, pronounce your name for me, your last name, before I screw it up, please.
Damsø.
Kasper Damsø. Okay, so it's just like it looks. So Kasper is joining us from Denmark tonight. He is a veteran of the Danish military. He served in one of the most unique special operations units in the world called Sirius Patrol. And I will hand it off to Kasper. He has a whole presentation for us tonight. But I'll just say these guys work with dog sleds patrolling the Arctic tundra of Greenland.
Do we want to get his origin story real quick? And, let our viewers get to know you real quick?
Yeah, please. So, Kasper, if you can just start off telling us a little bit about your upbringing and how you ended up joining the Danish military.
Yes, thank you very much, and thank you for letting me on the show tonight. And I'll try to enlighten you a bit about the Sirius Patrol. We operate in northeast Greenland, and Greenland is the big white country on top of the globe, so it's part of the deception by layout covert operation. So we named Greenland because it's completely white, and it's a part of Denmark, even though it's several thousand kilometers away from Denmark. So the reason why I got interested in Greenland was when I lived in Denmark, I always knew I was going to join the military. But then my father went to Greenland to work as a police officer in Greenland. So when I was like 15 years old, I thought as a great opportunity to combine being a soldier and joining the military in Greenland. But first of all, I have to go back to Denmark, and then I did my selection program in Denmark and joined the Special Forces, and then I came back to Greenland to join the Sirius Patrol.
Did you already know about the Sirius Patrol, or did you have an awareness of all the different things going on in the military?
No, it was like I was 14 years old when my dad came into my room and said, "Hey, son, come out here. There's a great show on TV tonight. I think that's something just about right for you." So I don't know whether it's because my father was so enthusiastic or whatever, but that TV show just got into me, and I knew that's what I'm gonna do when I grow up.
So you actually grew up in some of your teenage years in Greenland then, when your father was stationed over there.
Yeah, we went up there when I was 12, and I stayed there for almost 4 years, and then I came back and went to high school in Denmark, and then joined the military and went to Officers Academy, and then after that selection program for Sirius Patrol, and then to Greenland.
So if you could just a little bit tell us, as far as civilian life is concerned, what was it like living on Greenland? How was that life a little bit different than Denmark or New York?
It was very different. The whole area of Greenland is the biggest island in the world. That's also why it's so big on the globe and on every map you will see. But it's only living 50,000 people there in the total of Greenland. So the city I grew up in was 3,000 people, and Sirius operates in northeast Greenland, where there's no local inhabitants. There's only 27 people living in northeast Greenland. It's 160,000 square kilometers. I'll get back to that a bit in the presentation, but it was completely different from anything else. You might find a remote area in Alaska that's a bit similar to that, but it's a long way from everything. You can't drive from one city to another in Greenland, so you are absolutely remotely.
Does the temperature fluctuate throughout the island, or is it pretty constant everywhere?
Oh, it's absolutely coldest in the middle of the country, and then along the coast you'll have more heat due to to the sea. That's hot, but it's down to minus 50 degrees centigrade. So it's like super cold. And if you have a blizzard, you get down to minus 80 or 90. So it's really tough conditions.
Oh my goodness.
And so your dad was a police officer in a small town. What's small town life like in Greenland? I mean, from our perspective, it's like, why do people even live there? You're out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, it's basically what you see in documentaries and movies. It's a very, very small town. Everybody knows everybody, so it's a quite easy job being a policeman, because if someone commits a crime, you are most certainly sure that someone knows who it was, because it's not anyone from outside. It has to be one from the inside. So it's it was kind of. I also used to live in New York, and we had burgers there, Jack. So it's you can't get any further away from New York City than a small town in Greenland.
It seems like it would be too cold to commit crime. You know? Like it wouldn't be worth going outside to commit crime because it's just too cold.
Exactly.
How did you entertain yourself? I mean, this is before.
But then you know it's exciting, so you get a bit heated up.
You get what? Oh yeah, right.
Say again.
Well, I was. How did you, as a teenager, how did you entertain yourself? Considering there was no Netflix at the time, or online video games or anything like that.
Oh, but there's a lot of nature. I mean, that's why I got hooked on nature. Being outside, going hunting, going fishing, do all the kinds of stuff, go skiing, everything that you can do outside. I mean, I was kind of happy that there was no Netflix, no mobile phones and stuff like that at the time, because you had to go outside and play outside.
Yeah.
That's super cool. So, do you want to talk about your entry into the military then, Kasper, up until the point that you're ready to give your presentation, and then we can turn the slides on?
Yeah, I joined the Ricky battalion in Denmark, so doing a long-range reconnaissance as a start, and went to get my sergeant school, and came back and worked as a platoon commander in the Ricky platoon, and then after that I joined the selection program for the Sirius Patrol.
Okay. Actually, before we get into like what the selection process was like, things like that, Kasper has actually a presentation for us, because almost all of us are unfamiliar with the Danish military and whatnot, and so we can start that. Jack's going to go ahead and blow your screen up so that you can share your slides.
Okay.
There we go.
Yes.
So if you want to go ahead and share those, I'll put those up on the screen, Kasper.
Yes. They should be.
All right, you can go ahead, Kasper. I'm just going to format it here for you so that people can see.
Yes, exactly. Thank you very much. Just a picture of a regular patrol here. I'll start by showing where Greenland is actually located. As I just mentioned before, you have Russia on the right side of the screen, and then you have United States on the other side. So Greenland is right in the middle. I'll get back to that strategic position in a minute. The three key takeaway from my time in this unit, you can say that pain is temporary, glory is forever. You use also that in many of your units, and I guess that's also one of the things, one of the reasons why we're still sitting here talking. If you can keep yourself together and go through with this in a rather young age, then you can enjoy the fruit and the triumph of this for many years to come afterwards. Second thing, it's always good to remember, if it was easy, they would send someone else. I mean, everybody likes to see action movies and everything, and you talk to a lot of people, they would like to try this. But when it gets really shitty out there, you have to remember that if it was easy, everybody else was doing it. And the third thing is that the harder the struggle, the greater the fun afterwards. It's not really fun while it's ongoing, but afterwards, while you sit here in your sofa and have a beer, then it's really fun to talk about. A bit about myself. I spent like 14 years in the Special Forces in Denmark. I did a tour in Greenland, of course, and then also in Kosovo, India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Africa. And after quitting the military, I took a master's degree in psychology. And now after that, I was working with Volkswagen and became a management consultant. And now today I work as a managing director, making bricks, so in the construction business. A bit about the Danish Special Forces. As you mentioned before, we have the Sirius Patrol, which is unlike any other special forces. We call it the most special forces in the world that we know of. And then we also have some more regular special operation forces like the Frogmen. It's equivalent to the American Navy SEALs. And we have the Jaegers, which is equivalent to the American Delta Force. But in fact, the history of the Sirius Patrol goes way back. Many in this special forces community would think of the SAS from UK as some of the founding fathers of the special forces community. But we are proud to say that while the SAS was created on July 1st in 1941, the Sirius Patrol was actually created already in April 9th, 1941. So we're actually a bit older than the SAS. And both the Sirius Patrol and the SAS was discontinued in October 1945 because after the Second World War, everybody was thinking that now there will be no more wars, there will be no more need for military in the world. But as we all know, we got a bit wiser during time, so they restored the SAS in 1947 and the Sirius Patrol in 1950. So while you may not have heard so much about the Sirius Patrol, you definitely heard about the Rolex. They made some commercials with our unit since the 80s. There are some different commercials they did together with Rolex in the National Geographic magazine. A bit about the Sirius Patrol. As I said, the world's most special forces. It consists of only 6 teams of 2 men and 11 dogs. Wow. We cover 160,000 square kilometers of ice and snow. You run a marathon every day on your skis, like 45 kilometers. Temperatures down to minus 50 degrees centigrade. You have a continuous service for 2 years and 2 months with no holidays. You get no visits and you don't get to see your family. And of course, without the internet and the cell phones. So it's a quite nature adventure. Again, our position right between Russia and America, and that's of course why it has such an important strategic position. And that's also why Mr. Donald Trump tried to buy Greenland from Denmark just 2 years ago. Maybe you heard about that, but he was unsuccessful in doing that. So we still got to keep Greenland. And here you see a map of Greenland. Only 56,000 people in total, and the total area of Greenland is 2.1 million square kilometers. And the national park, the total area of the national park is 972,000 kilometers, and only 27 men is living here. So there's no Greenlanders in this whole area. But we don't patrol the middle. We only patrol the coastline. There's 16,000 kilometers of coastline around Greenland. The story about northeast Greenland is that in the early days, in the beginning of last century, there was a lot of Danish and Norwegian trappers and hunters in Greenland. And at some point, some of the Norwegians planted a Norwegian flag and said that now this area is Norwegian. And Denmark complained about this to the International Court of Justice in Hague. And in 1933, it was decided that all of Greenland was Danish. But then Denmark has to commit to put some people up there to wave the Danish flag. And then we know we had the Second World War, and that was actually quite important in Greenland, because if you know the weather in northeast Greenland, you know the weather one day later in the Atlantic Ocean. And of course, as you know, it was a very important submarine war going on in the Atlantic, the so-called Battle of the Atlantic. So therefore, the Germans launched some weather station in the northeast Greenland, and that's why they created the Sirius Patrol in 1941 to go on their dog sleds to try and find these German weather station, and then radio signal to the Americans that would come and bomb these weather stations away. So there was some small battle going on, some small guerrilla fighting in northeast Greenland, and there are some of the first guys in the Sirius Patrol were actually killed during that Second World War in Greenland. As mentioned before, after the Second World War, we had the Cold War. I have to say that also the Second World War was very cold in northeast Greenland, but during the Cold War, this strategic position came up again, and therefore they launched the Sirius Patrol again. And in the top left corner of Greenland, you have Thule Air Base that you might heard of. And back in the 1950s, when they started Thule Air Base, there was only like 25,000 people living in Greenland. And when Thule Air Base was at its highest, there was more than 13,000 people in the Thule Air Base, Americans. Wow. They had only one job, and that was to launch all these B-52 bombers launched with nuclear weapons. And they would fly this route you see down there on the slide in the bottom left corner. So they would fly from the northwest corner of Greenland over to Russia. And before the B-52 would turn around and go back to Greenland, another B-52 was already launched and on its way to Russia, just in case they would start a nuclear fight. So it was quite an operation they had over there in the Thule Air Base. What you see on the top right corner is part of the distant early warning system, where the Americans put these big radar stations all the way down through Greenland to be able to detect if the Russians would shoot nuclear missiles from Russia to the United States. They would have to fly right over Greenland. So that's why, again, Greenland had this important strategic position. And then on the right bottom, you see Camp Century. Great idea that the Americans had to build a city under the ice. You have the ice cape on Greenland, where the ice is the thickest. It's more than 3,000 meters thick. So the idea was to steam your way under the ice cape and build a city and have a nuclear reactor within the ice cape, and then you could have ballistic missile systems, and you could just open the ice roof and you could fire missiles towards the Russians. They actually built this camp under the ice, and they stayed there for a while until they realized that the ice is constantly moving, and it's not so cool to live in a house that's moving when you have a nuclear reactor next door. So the project was abandoned, but it was actually quite impressive. But that's a whole different story. You can talk for hours about all the crazy stuff that you guys did in Greenland. So Denmark, they launched the Sirius Patrol again in 1950, and you can apply if you are about 20 to 30 years old. You have a good military record. All the famous thing, if you want to join your special forces, just in this case, you're not allowed to be married, and you're not allowed to have kids, because you're away for more than 2 years in a row with no chance of getting in touch with your wife and kids. So that's quite unique. You're not allowed to be married. What I also realized that is quite unique when I talk to guys from other countries, special forces, is that you don't get to have any vacation. You don't get to have any days off. You don't get to go to the bar on Friday night and tell stories about what you did last week. So that's also quite unique. And because you're only with one guy for more than 6 months of the year, you have a quite intense psychological evaluation to see that you're fit for these hard mental conditions. It's of course a very hard physical conditions, as every special forces selection is, but also it's very tough mentally, because you're only with this one guy for more than 6 months a year. The training program is you have to earn a 2-year service before you can 2-year regular service. You have to at least be a sergeant of rank before you can apply, and then you undergo this 7 months training program where you have to, aside from all the military skills, you also have to learn everything else, because you're the only guys there. So you have to learn everything from being a fireman to hunting to flying, communicating, cooking skills. You even have to be able to sew your own clothes. You have to know how to make electricity, how to make fresh water, how to be a veterinarian so you can fix a dog and everything. And of course, you also need to get the big doctor's degree so you can also do surgery on your partner, because for example, when we operate in Afghanistan with you guys, you operate with this golden hour. You need to be in the hospital within this golden hour. In northeast Greenland, if you have an accident, you have to stay alive yourself for maybe up to a week before someone can come and rescue you, because it's not possible to fly up there with helicopters. You can only fly there with fixed wing airplanes. And usually when you have an accident, it's nowhere near an airstrip. So that's why you need to get this advanced medical surgery training. And of course, you have some Arctic survival training. When we do the Arctic survival training in Greenland, there's no really chance of bailing out, because you still have to survive. You can quit, but you still have to survive to get back to base and actually quit. So it's quite good. It's a quite good test whether people have what it takes or not. So, and the Arctic survival is a 5-week course. All the other courses, the 7 months program, takes place mostly in Denmark, and then we have this 5 to 6 week course in Greenland. And the end test of this is that after these 5 weeks of training, you have to do a 100 kilometers test on skis. And you start by taking your skis and your equipment and everything, and then you go through the ice. Maybe it's a minus 35, and then you make a hole in the ice, and you jump the student in the water. So he's completely cold. He has to take off all his clothes, and then take his emergency kit bag and put on his emergency clothes, and then he has to walk 100 kilometers. Oh. And it's not like when you see cross-country skiing on TV. He has to make the tracks himself, and he has to complete this 100 kilometers within 24 hours. And normally you don't compete if it's less than minus 25, but in the Sirius Patrol we have to be able to compete even if it's down to minus 50. So it's a rather tough test. So after completing that test, it's a kind of walk in the park to do a regular marathon. We do the Copenhagen Marathon in the streets of Copenhagen. It's just like the New York Marathon, just that we run in complete Arctic gear, in jackets and trousers and boots, and then we pull the sleds, which is around 100 kilos. So there's 6 people taking turns on pulling and pushing the sled. But this is good fun. There's several 100,000 spectators along the route, so it's a really motivating. And then when you get back to Greenland in August, it looks like this, because this summer in northeast Greenland is about 1 month. So in July you will have ice on the water, you'll have snow on the mountains, and then in August everything is gone, and then in September it starts to snow again. And this is a picture of the Sirius Patrol base called Daneborg. We only get the supplies once a year because it's not able to sail the waters when they are frozen over. So you have to go to the grocery shop one time every year and get all your supplies for 1 year. And there's no PX or whatever you guys are used to. So one time per year. We also have a summer headquarter where we put out all the supplies and provisions that we need for the sleds patrol in the winters. And some of these old trappers, cabins and huts, we use them for depots to stash our food for the sleds patrol in the winters. In the northern part of Greenland, there's no animals, there's nothing. It actually has the status of a desert because there's nothing living up there. So therefore, there's no trappers, huts, or cabins or anything. So we build them ourselves. There's a big landing strip in the northeast corner of Greenland also. So in case when you're flying across the Atlantic, you can have the chance of having an emergency landing on top of Greenland. In August, it already starts to snow in the late of August, and then we start patrolling in the 1st of November. And 1st of November, when you're this high up on the globe, you are above the Arctic Circle. Then 1st of November is also the last day you'll see the sun above the horizon. So day after 1st of November, the sun is going down. Wow. And you won't see the sun for more than 3 months. So this is also one of the reasons why you have to have this extensively psychological evaluation, because when you don't see the sun for 3 months, then you can tend to be kind of depressed. But this is a picture taken in December when you have the full moon. So it's not the sun shining; it's actually the moon. Wow. So we will change the rhythm of the day. So we will be awake at night and sleep during day, because you have almost like daylight when you have clear skies and the full moon. On the other hand, when it's December and it's overcast and there's no moon, it's just completely blackout. So it's also kind of an experience to go on skis and drive a dog sled in completely blackout. And of course, you have to get back for Christmas and New Year. And usually January is really bad weather. It's like a lot of snow and blizzards, storms, like up to speeds up to 200 kilometers an hour, 130 to 40 miles per hour. It's really tough weather. So in January, for most parts, we are staying at the station and preparing the station for the winter season. And we also prepare the dogs, of course, make sure that they get the right amount of food, and we weigh them and we give them a bit of a pedicure so they are ready to rock again when we go on the spring patrol. When we start on the spring patrol, we fly all the way up to Thule Air Base. It's almost next to Canada, on the top of Greenland, and we go there by this Twin Otter airplane that the Americans invented in the Vietnam War. It's a super nice short takeoff and landing aircraft. Needs only to go up to like 50 miles per hour before it's airborne, and it can land everywhere. And you see here that it has instead of wheels, it has skis. So we put the dogs and all our equipment inside this Twin Otter, and then we fly for 2 days over to Canada. And then we land, and you sit in the airplane. You have like 25 degrees centigrade inside the cabin, and it's super nice. And then the airplane is landing, and it's minus 48 degrees centigrade outside. So the airplane can only stop for a few minutes. It cannot shut down its engines because otherwise it would freeze and get stuck in the snow. So just get out with the people, get out with the dogs, and then the airplane takes off. And then you have 3,500 kilometers back to base, and it's 4.5 months of patrolling just with your one colleague. So it's a rather tough moment when you see the airplane just lifting off and it's completely silent. And then you won't see any other people for the next 4 months. So you you start to think whether this is a really good idea or not. But fortunately, it's so cold that you don't have time to stand there because you start to freeze. So it's get up and get your gear going, and then you're on your way already. This is a standard Sirius campsite. We use the Prairie Wagon tent model because it's been tested for 80 years, and it's the best tent for these harsh conditions. So we put the tent up against the wind, and you can see the dogs lying there on the right side, and on the inside we have a small apartment with the kitchen in the middle, and then you have each side of your tent. And you take turns every day. One day you're the outside guy, and next day you're the inside guy. So the outside guy take care of the dogs and feed them, and the inside guy take care of feeding the two guys. And the food is just freeze dried, so it's not a place to go where if you're really hooked on tasting different kinds of food. It all tastes the same, but you need to have a serious amount of calories. In the USA, you have on everything you buy, it says on the backside, everything is based on a 2,000 calorie diet. In Northeast Greenland, you have to have 10,000 calories every day because it's so physically hard, because you have to walk 45 kilometers on skis, and you have to keep warm at the degrees down to minus 50. So 10,000 calories per day, so you have to eat a lot of chocolate. On this picture, we are at the Cap Moist-Jessup, the world's most northern position. And we have the Danish flag is standing on this position, and we, of course, change the flag every time we get by there. On the other side is just me freezing my butt off. And this here is a set of toes. It's not mine, but from some guy who was also freezing his toes. And you can see on the left side, it's a frostbite. How it looks after 8 hours getting a frostbite, it's similar to get burned. And after 2 weeks, you can get unlucky that you got completely frostbite. That means that your skin and your flesh will turn black, and it's completely dead. And you look at the amputee. Luckily for this guy, he got to keep his toes, but this is really serious business. Also because the danger of freezing your feet is that you'll feel that it's very, very cold, and then suddenly you won't feel it anymore. Mm-hmm. And then you have two chances: either that you got your warmth again and everything is good, otherwise that it's look like in this picture. The dogs, they are super cool and extremely tough. There's a dog underneath this snow, so if you have a blizzard up to 100 miles per hour, the dogs will just lay like this with their nose under their tail and wait for good weather to come. And of course, the Sirius, you say that a dog is a man's best friend, and of course, in the Sirius Patrol, it's even better. But make no mistake, they are related to the wolf. So if you have a female dog that's ready to get pregnant, then everybody is bleeding. Every dog, they will fight to their death to be able to be father of some nice new puppies. And that's one of the good things about the job. You get to hang around with these small guys. Otherwise, it's if you like to get out in nature, if you like really tough working conditions, if you like to be in a really good shape, this is a place to be. And then, of course, you have a lot of wildlife. This is muskox. We have walrus. This is 1,500 kilos of pure flesh. It's kind of an amazing animal. And of course, we also have the polar bear, the king of the Arctic. And Northern Lights. It's a great adventure. We only see pictures of all the nice things. It's not really. There's not so much time to take pictures when everything is going haywire. So that's more or less very quick 1 year tour, and then the next year you will do the same thing. So it gives you a bit of an eye opener to what the Sirius Patrol is. So now we can have all the questions that you would like to ask.
Dave, would you like to go through the questions? Why?
Yeah. So we have some. I mean, there's so much I want to ask you, but we have some. You
Kasper, if you can just unshare the screen so it goes back to normal.
Oh, yes, of course.
And you can ask the questions.
let's see here. We have some questions from our viewers. Let me see. Richard Bowen, thank you very much for the donation. Alejandro Esteban, thank you. What is the relationship like between members of the patrol and the dogs? When a dog retires, can veterans adopt them? And he said, "Tak skål." Tak skål? Skål?
Yeah, skål.
Skål. Yeah.
Cheers. Yeah, you cannot adapt the dogs. The dogs, they will run for 5 years. They will have 5 seasons, and then of course the best dogs they will get prolonged. So maybe take a 6th season, and then they'll get the best dog will get pension. There are 2 more stations, the airfield that I mentioned on the top east side of Greenland. Then we position 5 to 6 dogs, so we have spare parts in case we lose a dog.
Sure.
And then they can stay there till they're like 7 or 8 years old. But the reason how they retire is that the guy who owns the dog, he is also responsible for putting them away. So that's kind of a tough decision, because these dogs they are like your best friends. It's the same if you have an EOD dog or whatever working dog you have. You get a really, really close relationship. Also, when you only have one colleague, at a certain point in time, you don't want to talk more to this guy, so you only have the dog to talk to, and you.
So when a dog essentially reaches the end of its career, there's not much that can be done with it. I mean, you can't have feral dogs running around. You can't have a big ranch full of dogs. So there's nothing much that can be done with it. Correct?
Exactly. No, you have to take his life, and it's kind of like a noble ceremony. It's like. I think some Indians will do the same thing, but you have a really, really strong relationship with your animals. But it's kind of a strong thing when you have to take a really good friend and you have to take him out and you have to put him to rest. But so that's a story that every serious guy can tell about how you have to do that. So it's part of training. Yeah. It's part of the job.
It sounds challenging. I mean, I understand the logistics side of it, and it also sounds very challenging. Thank you, Andrew. We're going to have to. Oh, he said we're going to have to go get some nuclear waste from Camp Century, aren't we?
Yeah, actually, some of the leftovers from this camp is actually going to surface now, because the glacier has moved so far that some of this debris from that city is actually going to get visible within the next years.
And Andrew also asked, is it possible to fail the sewing course? Can you get washed out of Sirius Patrol because you can't sew?
No, you just have to wear some really, really ugly clothes.
Thank you, Alejandro. With the remote location and the wildlife, have you or other patrol members ever had encounters with polar bears? And did one ever try to give you a Coca-Cola, a Coke?
Yeah, I definitely had encounters. I think I have seen around 20 polar bears. No one that tried to give me a Coke, but a polar bear, they don't have any natural enemies, so they're super curious, and they will try and come and see whatever you have. We have reached some depots where the polar bear had eaten everything. We have maybe been sledging for 2 weeks, and you're really looking forward to get resupplied. Then this polar bear had just eaten everything. But so I haven't gotten Coke from anyone, but I have put one on fire. Because you can't scare a polar bear away by making noise or giving them a warning shot. So we use a flare gun, and then you put this, try to put the flare between you and the polar bear. But if you shoot it up in the air and the flare goes behind the polar bear, then you are in risk of threatening towards you. So this polar bear got really close, and it got on his back legs, and he stood up. He's like 4 meters tall. So we shot him right in the belly with this flare gun, and then his fur caught on fire, and then he ran away. So no coke, but a burning polar bear.
What's your plans aside from the flare gun? I mean, obviously, you have plans for dealing with polar bears, and you're not going to outrun one. So,
we can shoot them, but it's not legal to. In the earlier days, it was legal to shoot polar bears, and the Sirius Patrol would shoot them and eat them. But now today, it's a national park, so all animals. You're not allowed to kill them, but you can eventually have to kill a polar bear or a muskox if they will attack you. So of course, in that case, you will kill it.
Are muskox fairly aggressive, or is it only during certain mating season, or how does that work with muskox?
No, they can get really aggressive, and the fun part is that the sled dog is made for it's a hunting dog. So the way the Eskimos would hunt polar bears and muskox and everything else is that they would drive around with the dog sled until the dogs would get the scent of the polar bear, and then the Eskimo would just release the dogs, and all the dogs would attack the polar bear or the muskox. And while the polar bear and the muskox is fighting these dogs, then the hunter could run up there with his spear and kill it. So you can imagine if you have to kill a polar bear with just a spear that's 2 meters long, you have to get really close. Wow. So even though we have rifles today, the dogs, they will attack. If they see a polar bear or a muskox, they will just go crazy and attack. And that's also what we saw on this on the picture, that the dogs think it's really funny. And the muskox, they will turn like with the back to back, and then they will attack outside, and they're pretty furious. And if you have a tag box and you shoot it, it will keep running, and it's like 400 kilos, and it's really hard forehead. So don't mess with those guys.
Kasper, what is this? I heard a story. I can't remember if this was something you told me or I read somewhere, that the Sirius Patrol carries a rifle of a special caliber to shoot the polar bear if need be.
Yeah, the caliber is 7.62, but it's an old Remington from 1917, because it's the only reliable rifle when it's down to minus 50. So we never oil it, we never grease or anything, but you can't shoot an automatic. We also use the Glock 20 millimeter pistol for close protection. But in the minus 50, even though it's a 10 millimeter, you can risk that when you shoot it, you can't reload because it's so cold. And this old Remington rifle, it will always work. The old mouse and lock, that works anytime. So we still use that.
Is it a bolt action?
Yes.
Wow.
That works.
Old reliable.
Yeah, exactly.
Jake, thank you very much. And Jake again. Hey guys, thank you for all your podcasts. I listened to Joel Struthers. Oh, French Foreign Legion.
Yeah.
And have decided I'm going in December of this year. Thanks for everything. Jake, good luck, man. And please keep us updated. Andrew, so we talked about your weaponry. He said what kind of weaponry were used. In addition to the Remington and the Glock, did you guys carry anything else in flare guns?
No, we don't carry anything else on the patrols as of now. But we have depots with also light machine guns and stuff like that. But it's mainly for patrolling. That's the armory that we carry.
You know, being that it's two men out there with so remotely, is there? I mean, you don't have like a hatchet force or a quick response force or any kind, even a long response force. If you were to say encounter a hostile force setting up on your shores, or if you guys were under duress, what's the plan for retrieving you, for rescuing you, for engaging the enemy, things like that?
The first plan is to observe and report, and the next plan is to try and stay alive. In the old days, of course, they would hope that you would get to send some message home before you would get killed or whatever. If you could escape, fine. If you couldn't, too bad. Today, when you also have satellite coverage and everything, but you always need boots on ground to check out what's going on. So that's the main purpose, because a two-man army can't do much when it comes to direct action, but
right.
They can observe and report. And that's also why we are patrolling all the time, to be able to distinguish between if something is going on, because when nothing is supposed to be going on, you get a quite good sense of if something is happening.
Interesting. And maybe there are things you can't talk about, but have there been incidents over the years that you didn't mention in your slide presentation that were notable for your unit?
Yeah, there's been some things along the way also. The Russians had their nuclear submarines that can go in under the ice and all this. So of course there has been activities, and also because of the all of the wealth of the gold and diamonds and all kinds of minerals
and
there
rare
are
earth minerals
in Greenland and everything. You talk about the geological surroundings of Greenland, everything that's going on under the ice cape. So of course there's a lot of things going on there.
Interesting. So, I mean, some of your job may apply to like pirate civilian organizations or looters as much as foreign countries at times.
Yeah, exactly. We also have the police authority in the area, so in case anyone should come up there, but it's mostly scientists and mining companies, and of course some tourists in the summertime will come with a special Arctic cruise ship that we also have to engage and make sure that they follow the rules.
Interesting. Ian, thank you very much. I understand that the topography of Greenland is essentially a bowl. Is that correct? If so, does it affect mobility in that you have to climb out?
Yeah, we mainly patrol around the fjords on the coastline of Greenland. As I said before, it's the ice cap is up to 3 kilometers thick. So at some places we have to go on the ice cap to cross from one fjord to the other, but that's really dangerous. You have a lot of crevasses, and you can fall down between in these glacier crevasses. So it's super dangerous to go up on the ice cap. So we are mostly on the ice on the fjords, but that can also be dangerous because you can have what we call is bad ice, and even though it's minus 35 or minus 40, the current in the ocean can make sure that the ice is rotten, and you go through the ice. So and it's a really cold adventure to go down there, and we have lost colleagues on that account.
Kasper, the job is extremely dangerous, and it's 12 men, correct? 12 men?
Yes.
And
yes.
The tour is about 2 years, just a little over 2 years. How often do they run selections, and then how do they manage when a man does get injured or killed? How do they handle his replacement if selections are on a cycle to match people's tours?
It's you have 6 teams of 2 men, one old guy and one new guy. So you turn every year you turn 6 people. So there's always one old guy and one new guy coming. So we have selection running every year, and so we keep continuing this loop. So the old man teaches the new guy, and next year he's the new guy, the old guy teaching a new guy. So you have a continuous production of new people. And whenever someone get injured or even get killed, you will take someone from the year before or longer before and replace him with that guy.
So they might call somebody back to service after they've done their 2 years, 2 months?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we also have a reserve unit where guys that are coming home, they're still serving in the Sirius reserve unit. So you always have extra guys to take in.
Okay. And how do those guys adapt, if they have to? How do they adapt back into Sirius service after having the soft life of a civilian in a reserve unit?
Yeah, it's such a strong experience. You can talk to these guys, and they would say they are the best years in their life, and everyone would more or less give their right arm to have the chance to go back there. So it's never a problem to find people to go back there.
Okay, because I could never go back to being like I'm too soft. I would fold instantly.
Well, yeah. On that note, I'd be interested to ask you, what is it like integrating back into Danish society after being out in the middle of nowhere with nobody except your one partner and a dozen dogs? I mean, what's it like coming back home?
Yeah, it's a question we always get, and one way of answering the question is, if you live 25 years in New York City and you go away for 2 years and you come back, then it's easy to go back to the things you've done for 25 years.
Sure.
But there's a lot of things going on in your mind. For example, when you're out there, everything is about surviving. Mm-hmm. And it means when you can't not do anything. It's not like, I'm too lazy today. I don't want to fix my dogs. I don't want to fix my equipment. I don't want to make sure my rifle is working, because everything is about life and death. So you never don't do anything. So you have the best conscience ever. You never have bad conscience because there's nothing that you can't do. So when you lie on your sleeping bag at night, you have the best conscience ever. I never felt so good in my life, because when you're in normal society, you can always, go online. You can always write your mother. You can always call your children. You can always do something. That's always something you can do. Up there, there's nothing you can do, because all the things you have to do, you have to do, and there's nothing beside of that.
Right.
So that's really great. I mean, it's really, really basic man stuff. You need to eat, sleep, and survive. That's all there is.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, it's really nice. It's really fun to kind of be wanting that. You think you have everything in society. We have heat, we have food, we have everything. But I mean, being out there where the only thing that matters is that you actually survive and make it to the next day. That's kind of fascinating. I kind of miss that, even though I like it when it's hot and nice.
Right, hot shower. Yeah.
Yeah.
With that, even though it's easy to go back to society because you're just returning to something you know. Is there a transition period for you where you're so used to the silence, the solitude with just one other person, things like that, and then you go back to noisy, bustling, loud people and things like that?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question, because even though the guys in the Sirius Patrol, they're very much alike on some of the personal skills, mm-hmm. but on the other, they are very different. I mean, when my wife sees us guys together, she's like, did you serve with this guy and this guy? You have to buy a nice piece of land out in the middle of nowhere and they will live there, whereas I live in the middle of the city and transition completely into a different life. So that's very different. And it's actually quite funny to see that. But it's also, I guess, your experience with your units that you have something that's in common, but then you're completely different on other
right.
kinds of mental issues.
Right. Fascinating. Thank you, Andrew. Is the dog population for the Sirius Patrol self-sustaining, or does Denmark have veterinarians seeking out breeding dogs?
Yeah, actually both. We were self-sustaining up to the point where we could get the Sirius dog to be its own race. But then some veterinarians and mathematicians were doing the math and saying that that would not be good in about 25 years or something. So then they decided not to make it a race and to start a breeding program to make sure that you will have all the right skills and abilities in the dogs. So
interesting.
So yeah, we're self-sustainable now, but we get eventually dogs from Greenland we have someone from Canada, we have some dogs from Alaska, and that's all put into place so that we'll have the best possible breed of dogs.
So the Sirius dog was pretty much its own breed, but because of inbreeding, it would have caused the genetic the genetic issues. What was the Sirius dog originally, or what breeds like?
It was a mix of the Alaskan Malamute, the big dog, and the Siberian Husky. So the Greenlandic sled dog is somewhere in between. But in the earlier days, like say from the 90s and back, they would like to have really, really big dogs. Whereas today in 2020, they would like to have more, but smaller dogs. So the biggest dog I had in my time was also the biggest dog that's been there, was 63 kilos. So it's a pretty massive. So, but today, I think a male dog would be around 40, 45 kilos.
Well, somebody do the math.
And female around.
So what dogs do they bring in now to breed with those to keep the line going, but to also keep the traits you want? Do they bring in the Siberian Huskies and the Malamutes still, or do they add things to it?
Only like sled dogs, but from different kennels, depending on what kind of skills or abilities they would like. That's a very important part of the sort of the logistics set up around the Sirius Patrol. They take very good care of that with the dogs.
Fascinating. And Andrew, thank you. Are there soldiers who just seem like? Are there soldiers who just seem to like the life up there and keep signing up for it? Do they allow you to stay on for more than the 2-month tour?
No, there are some positions where you can get an extra year or an extra 2 years, and you can come home and become be the commander of the unit that will train you, serious guys. I did that myself. So that's an additional few years, but that's it, and then it's out again. Also to make sure that we still keep getting you guys. Yeah. But some of them will move into similar positions, join the different like the Navy SEALs or the Delta Force. They will join these units where they can stay on for more years, or they will go on or start a civilian life like this in the wilderness and hunt polar bears and stuff like that. Or go completely civilian and have a completely normal life.
Is there do the majority of the guys tend to get out of the military once they've done this tour, or do the majority tend to stay in and pursue careers in the military?
No. The majority leave because this is nothing like regular military service. So it's kind of you make all the decisions yourself. So it's if you want to continue, it will be in another special forces unit. It's not possible to go back into the regular military because it's too regulated when you're used to this. So this, of course, there's a few now and then who stays in the military, but not in let's say regular positions.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
I stayed on for more years because I also like the more direct action side of it, the tours in Afghanistan and Pakistan and all this. So that's a completely different ball game. So it's still within the special forces community, and you're very much making decisions yourself. It's not like a big unit where you have to do what everybody else is telling you. So of course there's someone who's staying in, but most will leave after this and get a civilian career.
Could you tell us about that then, leaving Sirius Patrol and deploying to the Middle East?
Yeah, you said from minus 50 to plus 50. So special operation force between 100 degrees centigrade. So but I think I kind of guess it's more or less the same as everyone. The special atmosphere in the military and in the special forces community. And I just like that, and I like going abroad. I like to get new adventures, and then of course join the military, see the world, and you always get to go places where you wouldn't go, like on a holiday and stuff like that. So I find that really interesting, and you get to meet a lot of cool people from around the world. All the the coalition forces that you get to meet, and I find that really exciting.
So you went from Sirius Patrol to the training school for a while, right? Did you go to the training? Didn't you?
Yes.
And then you went. Which special operations unit did you go into from there?
I went to the Jaeger Corps as an intelligence officer in that intelligence branch.
Okay.
And then I went also with a mission in Pakistan for gathering intelligence with the United Nations. Also, they have India and Pakistan is still at war in Kashmir region, and that was also fantastic scenery. And then the northern part of Pakistan is a quite interesting place also.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
And I imagine your background in Sirius Patrol must have played it must have helped you, even though it's a very different environment, that the mission was reconnaissance.
Exactly. In Kashmir, on the border between India and Pakistan, they have the world's highest trenches. They are at war in the Sirius glaciers, which is 4,000 meters above sea level.
The Kargil conflict.
Yeah, exactly. So of course, that experience came in handy in those harsh conditions up there as well.
So, anybody who's been in the military, in the American military, understand this. But when you were in the Sirius Patrol and then you moved to another unit, do you get some sort of badge or tab that says that you were in the Sirius Patrol, so you get to carry that around with you when you go other places?
Yes, you get that, so you can flash that on your uniform here.
Very nice.
But the problem with that is that no one has ever seen it before, because there's so few of us. So it's very unlikely that someone will see it and know what it actually means. So they will have to ask you, what the fuck is that you're wearing there? So but you get to wear it.
That's awesome. That's very cool. And was the leadership of most of the units though, like, aware of what it was and your background and your skill set and things like that?
Yeah, we have like this poster that goes around in every military unit. It shows the grade. A general has so many stars, and a colonel has so many, and blah blah blah. And there's also a picture of this mark. But no one has. There's more likely to have seen a 4-star general than to have seen a guy with this mark on his uniform, because there's so few of us who've been doing service in this unit, and even few of them has continued their service in the military. Right. So it's
essentially 6 men a year.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah, that's incredible. So, do you want to tell us about, you can tell us about any of the deployments you want, if anything notable, and then we'll move on to Afghanistan, because we'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, but you can just ask whatever questions you want, and I'll feel free to ask.
Answer. What were your favorite deployments with the Jaegers?
It depends on how you look at it, but I like the Afghanistan because we were in this SOF fusion cell, part of the ISAF SOF. I was posted in Kabul, and the rest of my unit was down in the southern part of Helmand.
Okay.
But also, what was in this community, you can say, fun or cool about it is that everybody else is seeing the news on TV. They hear about Afghanistan, but they don't know anything about it. You're actually there, and you know what it's like in the middle of it. So that was kind of very interesting to get to behind the scenes and see what's actually going on. Yeah,
and did you find that your experience in Afghanistan lined up with the way the media was reporting it in Denmark?
No, not at all. And it's like you get some information, but you can't really use it in the sense of that no one understands. We can talk about it because we understand it, but you can't come home from a deployment and try to tell you to your family or to your friends on anything, and you can't go and say, "I'll tell you what it's really like." But they can't comprehend with it. So it's like you have a lot of knowledge, but you can't use it because no one is actually able of understanding it. So it's kind of frustrating, actually.
See, if you were in America, you could make a living off of telling people what it was like.
Say again?
I said if you lived in America, you could make a living off telling people what it was like.
He's making a Navy SEAL joke.
Yeah.
It's a SEAL joke.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
See, in America, it's the same in Denmark. It's the same in Australia. It's the same in Italy. There's this tension between Army Special Operations and Navy Special Operations. It's every single country has it.
It's just good fun. Yeah.
Exactly.
So how was it different? Like, how was the media portraying Afghanistan? And then how did you experience, what was the difference in that?
I think the way the media portrays it is like when you talk about in Denmark, when you talk about military operation, everybody thinks that the war is something like this. They thought in the First World War or the Second World War, like, you know, dropping bombs in cities, shooting women and children.
Right.
And you have to explain them that a war in this century is like doing police business. You don't just shoot people. You find the criminals and then you arrest them. That's what you're doing, and that's really impossible to try and get people to understand. So it's kind of I think it's really strange that the politicians, the government doesn't try to do more to tell people what's actually going on. Something like, you know, there's no reason for you to go over there. No, not unless you want them to sit there and make terrorist bombs and then come and shoot them at you while you're sleeping.
Right.
So it's. I think that's also part of the when we go into this talk about the veterans. I mean, you guys and me, we can sit here and talk about it, but you also have these guys that are not so well outspoken. They can't tell this to anyone. They don't know how to express themselves, but so they can hear themselves. Sounding really stupid when they try to explain what they were doing over there, and I feel kind of sorry for them. I think that's they deserve better than that.
Sure. I think that a lot of times our media presents it the same way, and without the idea that, you know, some Americans think that, you know, and probably that you're over there waging war against the local populace. And it's like, well, we're really not. We're actually in partnership with the local populace and the local government. And that was just...
I think that European countries, and I'm interested to hear your thoughts, Kasper. I think European countries also have a very different view of their militaries because of history, because of, well, I mean, we can go on, but there's this long history of warfare in Europe that is, in many ways, you know, left a mark on the population.
Exactly. And in at least in Denmark, we don't have this Team America World Police.
Right.
It's like in America, it's like you have to sort out whatever problem there is around the globe. In Denmark, it's just like we can just stay home and have fun and let someone else do it. And that's also, I mean, it's like people, they tend to forget that freedom is not free. Someone has to fight for freedom. And if you have a nice little paradise, I mean, someone else will come and take it if you don't defend it. So, but it's kind of difficult to explain to the regular Danish population.
It is, and I mean, it's hard to understand because, at least in America's, you know, case, like, we haven't always made the best case for why we are somewhere.
Yeah.
You know, the idea of, yes, you know, a bunch of barrel-chested freedom fighters protecting everybody's freedoms, but sometimes it's fair to ask from whom, because it
exactly.
But there are ramifications, like you said, in Afghanistan. They were building, you know, they were creating terrorists, you know, and things get murky as time goes on.
In a counterinsurgency.
Yeah. How long were you there for? How long was a tour for you when you were with the Jaegers?
It was just 5 months, I think, in Afghanistan there.
Okay. And
the longest.
Yeah.
And speaking of which, since we're on the topic, I should plug for Thomas.
Yeah.
You guys should go out and take a look. It's available in English and Danish. Thomas Rathsack's book, Jaeger, which all about Danish Army Special Operations, and really, really good book. Really nice guy. You guys should take a look for that if you want to know more about Danish SOF.
Now, when you said that you can't really explain to people, how is like how is the general population, the attitude towards the military, towards you as a veteran?
I always say I never use the phrase "veteran Denmark" because I think it's a wrong phrase when you have a guy that's 22 years old. He comes back from Iraq or from Afghanistan, and he's ready to go do whatever. And then people call him a veteran. Like he's a 22-year-old warrior. He's not a veteran. He's an ex-military guy. So we kind of get this picture that veterans is almost like Tom Cruise 4th of July. It's like someone you should feel sorry for.
Interesting.
And I try to tell the story that of course there's this 1% or 2 that didn't came out so well, but the 98% others they come out much stronger. They get a lot of experience. They get a lot of new skills that they can use. They are an asset for society. But we always keep hearing about these 1 or 2%. That's a problem. So it's at least in Denmark, it's very divided. I mean, in business life, you have a high standard. If you're an ex-military or an officer, you're really valuable. But in the other part of society, I mean, people will not almost talk to you if you're a soldier because this is too bad and you must be sick. How are you? Right. So I think that's it's very diversified.
Interesting. And is there medical care for former soldiers in Denmark? Is there like a system or a process for that?
Yeah, and you can say in Denmark there's a system for everybody.
For everybody. Okay.
We're a socialist democratic country, so we don't have the problems you have in the US. So we don't have not a special thing for veterans because we have the same security net for everybody. So that's some guys will look at America and say, oh, they have these special programs for veterans and everything. Yes, but you don't have special programs for anyone.
Right.
We have that in Denmark. So that's very different. But on the other hand, you don't have anyone in Denmark coming up and say, thank you for your service.
Right. You can't get a free dinner at Applebee's on Veterans Day?
No, we don't get free parking. When I was in Hawaii and we went to Pearl Harbor, and this is free parking for veterans in this area. We don't have any of that in Denmark.
Did you park there, Kasper?
Oh no. I parked next to it to see who was parking there.
That's very interesting. And I guess that makes sense. You don't need a VA if you have, medicine that covers everybody.
So what did you decide to do after your military career? I mean, you had this really, honestly, an amazing career for such a small, unique unit in Sirius Patrol, then moving on to being their head trainer, then getting to go and serve as an intelligence officer with the Jaeger Corps. That's super cool. What came next for you? What does Kasper decide to do after the military?
I was doing some leadership program, training civilian leaders, all the skills and most importantly the mindset. And while doing that, I was doing that for the biggest medical company we have in Denmark, Novo. And I was sitting with this scientists unit. There were 12 scientists, super clever, everybody. And I was talking about mindset and skills and everybody, and they were telling, where do you know this from? Who taught you this? I say, Life taught me this. Hey, they give a flying fuck about that. They needed some professors. We don't trust you if you don't go to university. And then I realized they had a point because everything I said was, of course, right, but it was just something that I said I need to get it verified. So I decided, okay, I need to go to university. I need to get a degree. And then actually, my plan was to go to Harvard to get an MBA because I thought that was kind of something that everybody would know of. But by coincidence, I ended up studying psychology in the most left-wing university we have in Denmark. If you have Harvard on this side and then you have this university as far away as you can come. But it was the best thing ever, because it's actually really super easy to be a leader or be a manager in a special forces unit, because the level of motivation is super high.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, almost everybody can do that, because if you're a manager in a basic training or a selection program, you say, get down there and give me 1,000 push-ups, they will do it, because they are motivated from within. But when you need to go out and motivate people, regular people, the guy with the copying machine or the women at Applebee's, what's motivating them? That's a completely different mind game. Right. So I really learned a lot from that psychology study, also because there was a lot of training exercises where we have to do it with each other. And there was a lot of women in this class, and that's the only thing there wasn't in any of my units. So they have a completely different mindset. So that was a very important lesson for me. So it kind of completed the circle for me. And also in when I work as a management consultant, if you come out to a business with your military background, instantly someone will sit like this and say, I don't care about the military. This is not the military. It doesn't work here. But if you come out and you present yourself as a psychologist, then someone will say, this is very interesting. And then some of the guys will say, I don't want this crap. And then you can pull out the military story, so you kind of can direct to everybody.
Right.
So it's super useful.
Did they, maybe you didn't even tell them, but did people because it was a left-wing university, did they treat you differently because you had been in the military?
No, the professors thought it was super fun, because they on all these classes, they always tried to get some with military background, because it would give some very good discussion in these exercises where you were supposed to have discussions. Because you come in with a completely different background, completely different approach, and that was very good for the learning for the whole group.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, real diversity of thought.
I have a question that comes to mind now, knowing that you have a degree in psychology and also served in Jaeger Patrol, or during this time frame, this period in history where people are socially isolated. How did you deal with that psychologically?
Yeah, there's no problem. I mean, we're not really isolated when you compare. When I was in Pakistan, it was in 2005. It was during the Muhammad crisis, where they were burning the Danish flag in the Middle East and all this. I was living in the most Islamic part of the world, and there you were isolated, because right outside your door they were shouting death over Denmark and burning the flag and everything. There was an actual threat if you would go outside. I mean, here you're isolated, but you can walk down the store and you can buy whatever you want. You can sit and watch Netflix, and there's no real threat. So, of course, like you also experience when people are talking about tough times and when things really, really go haywire, you said like, okay, come on. I mean, it's not really that bad. And that's also when I coach, professional sports people. They always say, this is so tough, this is so hard, and you have to put that into perspective.
Right.
I was training some athletes for the Olympics in Rio, and they were like, Kasper, it's not so easy, you have to travel all the way to Brazil, and you have to train for this for 4 years, and maybe you are out in the first round, and this is really, really, really tough. And I was like, So the shittiest thing in your life is you have to go to Rio in Brazil, and you have to do whatever sport you're doing for 5 minutes, and then you get kicked out, and then you can sit for 2 weeks, sip drinks with straw in the sun. That's your worst case scenario. Let me show you a worst case scenario. And then they will be kind of embarrassed, because you'll show them a coffin with a flag on top of it. I see, this is how it looks when you lose in my sport.
Right.
So it's not. There's nothing coming back next 4 years or anything. It's just over. That is shitty. Sitting on the beach in Rio sipping drinks, that's not really shitty.
Right. Yeah.
So you can work with the mindset. and the mindset of regular people, normal people, is completely different from the mindset that we know of. Yeah, I call it the special forces mindset.
And how, like, going through, becoming a psychologist at this university, how did you? Obviously, you have to have some empathy for people, right? You can't just be like a drill sergeant, like, you don't know what suffering is. How do you empathize with them, and then how do you sort of reframe their sense of suffering?
Yeah, actually, it's a very good question, because one of the things that really inspired me to go into the military in the first place was the movie Officer and Gentleman from the 70s with Richard Gere.
Yeah,
Deborah Winger,
I think.
But the drill sergeant actually has a lot of empathy in that movie. He starts by lining them up and being a real asshole, but he still has empathy in the end, and that's one of the most misunderstood thing about the military. People think that it's just a drill sergeant, shouting at someone. They don't see the side with the empathy. You need really to take care of your soldiers, because if you don't have your soldiers, you don't have anything. You can't win a war on your own. You really need to take care of your men, but you also need to make sure that your men perform at the best level possible. And that's what people they tend to misunderstand. But when I get new guys into my unit, they would not love me when they were under my command in the beginning. But afterwards, I always say, if I write on Facebook today, I need to go to Afghanistan, on Tuesday I need 10 people. The salary is shitty. You might not come home. Anyone want to come? And I have several hundred people saying, "Sign me up."
Right.
But they didn't like me when they first met me. They thought I was a psychopath or asshole or whatever. But they survived. Right. So now they're happy. And when you stand with the parents of these young kids, and you're taking them to Greenland or wherever you're taking them, and you look in the mother's eyes and say, "I'll take good care of your son." Right. This means that I have to train him so hard that it's most likely that he'll get out of this alive. Right. So that's actually a very important aspect that I spend a lot of time trying to tell people, that the military is not about breaking people down. It's about building them up. Right. But from an outsider, it can look like you're breaking them down because they're crying and they're sweating, but you have to find out where the limits are. And then you show them that even though they met their limits, you still love them. You show empathy for them. They still have a place in the group, in your unit. That's really strong, and I think that's some of the things that we miss.
A really interesting documentary that I saw, I think it was on Netflix. I think it's called Armadillo, about a Danish infantry platoon.
Yeah.
Really good, really interesting. Denmark, of course, is a very small country, very small military, but a very professionalized military also.
Yeah, exactly. We're completely different from your huge military machine, but we have a super cool military also, because in Denmark education is for free. So the level of education for privates in the Danish army is really, really high. The guy with the lowest rank or the minimum education military-wise, he's still kind of clever and able to make his own decisions, and that makes a very unique unit.
What's the average age of somebody who enters service in Denmark? Are they, because like in the U.S. it tends to be around 18, yeah. But do people in Denmark tend to go to college first and then into the military?
No, it's mostly like 19, 20 years of age when they join the military.
Okay. Out of curiosity, because we've talked about isolation and we've talked about psychology. In that 7-month training that you did for Sirius Patrol, did they teach you things like conflict resolution, or you're going to be out with one person for 4 months and nobody else? Did they teach you
how do you not kill your sled buddy?
Yeah. Did they teach you interpersonal skills or conflict resolution or anything like that?
Yeah, that's a lot of training in that. First of all, there's also it's a major part of the selection program. You get a really thorough psychoanalysis to make sure that your level in the beginning is very high, and then of course you get the training on top of that.
Okay, wow. And did you have to use any of those conflict resolution skills when you were in Sirius Patrol?
Yeah, I developed what I call the Sirius program for cooperation. It's like we call actually the nuclear model. It was inspired me when I was in India and Pakistan. You know, they both have nuclear weapons, because it's like if you can also use it in a relationship with your wife or anybody else. If you say that the total amount of decision that has to be made is 100%, in 95% of the times you just do whatever he wants or she wants. Then in 4% of the times you have to say, I want to do this, or we could also do that. You have to tell what's on your mind. Mm-hmm. But only in 1% of the time you can have your way. But this is like having a nuclear bomb. If you fire yours, they will fire it back, because in that one time you can make the decision saying, I want to move to California. That's your decision. Then your wife can say, okay, if that's what you want, I want to move back. So now you both spent your one time offer. This means that there is no way of having your way. There is only one way of negotiation.
Right.
And you have to be really, really apparent if there's something that's really important for you. Because if it's not important for you, don't say it. If it's really important, you have to say it, because otherwise your friend or your colleague or your wife, they can't know that it's important for you. I had one time with my colleague, you know, when he was stirring in his pot, his mother taught him to do it in the numbers of 8. So he would turn like an 8, and he would hack the spoon on the side of the pot like shh, shh. And it was like driving me mad after like 2 months. And then I said, you know, after spending 2 weeks trying to, you know, should I tell it or should I not tell it? Because if I told him this, he would definitely tell me something that he was fucking tired of. And so then I manned up one night and said, hey, Henrik, could you please stop doing that? Yes, of course. And I said, really? Yes. Why did you just say that before?
Right.
I thought it was important for you. No. I just had to do it like whatever. So it's kind of funny how your brain messes around with you.
Sure. And those are probably really important lessons just to carry on with life, that you have to ask for what you want. Otherwise, there's no way you're going to get it. Exactly.
But at the same time, you know, be aware of, is it always your way, or should we maybe go someone else's way? But that's all about the leadership. Mm-hmm. It's not having your way. It's about reaching whatever goal. And if the goal is cooperation, or the goal is to get back safe to base, then it's what you do.
Right. Yeah. And it's a team effort too.
Exactly.
In the context of, you know, military context or in Sirius Patrol, it's like, you know, if your buddy wants to go in the wrong direction, you're like, hey, we're going to ride right down a crevasse and die. Like, you have to speak up. You have to say something.
Exactly.
Out of curiosity, the time frame that you were in Sirius Patrol, I don't know if you guys were using GPSs, if you had that technology. I don't know the time frame, but how are you navigating point to point over such long periods of time with no real landmarks?
Yeah, that was a good question, because at that time it was in the beginning of the GPS, you know, the really big one with the antenna on top, the US military spec model, and then we had some old aeronautical charts, but there could be up to 40 miles difference if you took a waypoint to a known decision and a waypoint to another known location. There could be up to 40 kilometers difference between these two positions.
Wow.
So of course the GPS was right, but the charts, the maps were not GPS true. I'll just get a charger for my computer. Sure. 1 second.
Guys, this is a good time to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And check us out on Patreon also. The link is down in the description if you want to get access to the bonus segments.
$1 a month will get you access to amazing content in the bonus sections. If you want to get more, if you have it, we welcome it. We pay our rent. We do all the stuff. But thanks for joining us.
Yeah, and there's also the merch down in the description. I'm looking for the coffee mugs. I think I'm remiss in that I don't have them here, but that's okay. Well, all right, so what's up, Kasper? What do you got for us?
Whatever you want.
You said you have the chart.
Yeah. At that time, the charts were not GPS through. It was just some old photos, some aeronautical charts. So you could have to make the decision to go on the eastern side of an island or on the western side of the island. There would be a 40 kilometers difference between those. So that was kind of very interesting at those times. But today, of course, every map is GPS through, and it's you can pinpoint exactly where you are. But at that time, it was kind of difficult. And also, when you were sledging in a blizzard, you wouldn't even be able to see your own skis. It was completely white out. And then it would also be very exciting to see where you ended up. And we have examples of people going to a hut, and they would put up the tent. And when they woke up the next morning, they would see that the tent is like 2 meters from the hut, but it's completely impossible to see.
Wow.
But also just a thing like going on a toilet in a blizzard. I mean, you can't go anywhere. You have to to hold on to the sledge, because if you go away just 1 meter, and you think you're going a straight line this way and you go straight line back, but you deviate just a few degrees, then you'll never hit it, and you'll be lost.
Before the chart, when you showed us that picture of total blackout conditions, like in December when the sun would not rise, but you guys still had to move, right? You still had to navigate.
Yes.
How did you navigate in pitch black, again, with no real landmarks?
You'll make a course on your compass, and you'll decide to go like 40 degrees or like 120 degrees, and then you'll try and hold the compass course, and just kind of every hour make sure try to take a GPS position, see where you ended up. So it was tough navigating in the good old days.
Are the dogs pretty sense aware, where if you point them in a cardinal or in a compass direction, that they will kind of stay online?
Yeah, the good dogs would do that, but in tough conditions, we would walk in front. So one guy would be walking next to the sledge, and one guy would be walking.
Okay,
in front. So he'll be leading the way, and the dogs will follow his tracks. Also, if we have like very soft snow, if we have really deep snow, then you have to walk to make a path for the dogs, because they could almost be swimming. You can have so much snow that the dogs would almost be swimming in the snow. So you have to make a path for them to walk in.
Did you guys, because you were moving so much and skiing, and you guys weren't riding the sled, that was more for supplies, right?
Yes.
You were on cross-country skis. At that point, did you ever get tired, or were you just such a physical machine at that point in time, where moving, I don't know how many kilometers a day was just what you did? You get in really, really good physical conditions, but I mean, it was not the distance; it was the conditions. I mean, you could really, really struggle for 12 hours and have only moved like 800 meters. The worst conditions ever is if you have the ice is like maybe 3 meters thick, but then you will have like 1 meter of powder snow on top, and that's very warm because there's so much air covered in the snow. So some of the water on the top of the ice will melt. So this will mean you have 1 meter of snow, then you have 10 centimeters of water, and then you'll have the ice. So you'll get completely wet feet, and when you lift your skis up against all the snow, that will freeze onto this wet ski, and you'll have like your skis will weigh like 5 kilos, and your toes are completely wet and frosty, and that is psychopath conditions. I mean, you are ready to shoot your dogs and everybody else, and you struggle for 12 hours, and you can turn around and you can see where you camped last night. And in days like this, you think we're going to get killed out here, because we can absolutely not survive in this. Or on the top of Greenland, I showed you the flag on the most northern part of the world in Kappen Jessup. We had minus 50 for like 5 days. We were moving like 12 hours. A struggle would take us 1 to 2 kilometers.
and we had ate all our food. We had ate everything. There was not anything we could do, and we tried to call for help, but the weather was so bad that no airplane could drop us any supplies. And then, of course, we will cut down on supplies. But if you don't get enough calories, you don't have any energy. You have to cut supplies for the dog. Then they don't have any energy, and you can just see that with the less energy, you go even shorter distance, and then it takes you even longer to get to your supplies. So that was mental tough.
So did you guys just have to wait it out until you could get supplies, or how did that situation?
Yeah, but the problem about waiting is even waiting costs you energy. So you only have this amount of supplies. So if you take a day in your sleeping bag, you still need to eat, and then you have even less calories to get moving.
Right.
We always have like 50% extra on the sled, but if you come across tough conditions, tough weather, then you start to cut your rations, and eventually you run out. But it turned out luckily. I'm still here.
Yeah. I just to give viewers some perspective in terms of when we're talking about land navigation and no terrain features, do you know what an average leg is on a star course?
I mean, it depends on which course, but I mean, like when me and you went through ranger selection, 800 to 1,000 meters.
Okay, and then you know about like SF?
6 kilometers.
Okay, so almost just under 4 miles, right? 6 kilometers. So
Yeah.
in a lot of special operations selections, land navigation is part of the selection, and you have to run a star course or a land navigation course moving from point to point. But you're usually in an area that has terrain features that you can identify on a map, and you're moving maybe 4 or 5 miles, and there's a time limit. Now you're talking about day after day after day of no terrain features, because you use terrain features on a map to help.
Moving 800 meters a day. To the point where, like Kasper just said, you can look backwards and see your campsite that you just left.
Yeah, and even on a good day, if the weather is good, about how far could you guys move on a good day?
A good day would be like 45 kilometers.
So, what is that? 27 miles. 27 miles on a good day.
800 meters on a bad day.
Yeah, navigating with no. It's just amazing to me that every day was like a selection for you guys, but that was your normal means of living.
Yeah, that's also what's the kind of difference between the Sirius Patrol and all other units. I mean, other units, when you went, if you go to selection, then it starts to be much nicer on the other side. You get your vehicles, you get your airlift, you get it's so much nicer. Everything is good.
Life.
So if you can see it through selection, then you are home free more or less. In Sirius, it's the same. I mean, you pass selection, but you still have to survive. I mean, it's not going to be any easier.
Right now,
I mean, it's when it's a blizzard and it's minus 50, it's just as cold if you're in a selection program or if you pass. So it's very different.
Let's round it out with one last question before we go into the bonus segment here. Alex wants to ask, what was the coldest it ever got in Greenland, and why does Greenland hold for what does Greenland hold for geopolitics in the near future? What can the U.S. military learn from Denmark?
Oh yeah, that's a lot of good questions. The coldest thing we had was minus 50 degrees centigrade. And that was because our thermometer couldn't go below that. I mean, that is really, really shitty cold. It's so cold that if you touch anything with your bare hands, it will stick to the moist on your hands. And you can barely breathe because the air is so cold that your body needs to use a lot of energy before it can send it out in the lungs. So everything is kind of moving in slow motion when it's so cold. Then we come to the part with Greenland, where it should be geopolitical. As I mentioned earlier, Mr. Trump wants to buy Greenland because it was a nice defense line for America. And of course, the Russians think the same. There's a lot of minerals and stuff in Greenland. So of course they will have a big importance. I try to tell the Danish politicians they should be better at doing the marketing within NATO, saying that we command this big white thing on top of the world, so this should give us some credit down in NATO, because if we do this right, it's much more important than all the other military units combined, because you can't barely see Denmark on a globe, but you can definitely see Greenland. Right. So it is a very important part in the future.
I would just add to that, Kasper, point out that there, from an American perspective, part of the geopolitical relevance of Greenland and also Alaska and the Aleutian Islands is, I think we've talked about the dew line, the early detection systems, having a reconnaissance role, keeping tabs on what the Russians are up to in that area. But also, in the outbreak of an outright war, there would be the concern that a foreign power would seize Greenland, could seize Alaska, and use those as staging grounds to then come down into the continental United States and use that to attack us. So that's really if you come down to like a World War III type scenario, that's the geopolitical relevance of Greenland. On top of, like you said, there's rare earth minerals there and everything else. I mean, it is an important spot on the map.
Exactly. That's some high ground you want to conquer if you're planning on your third world war.
Sure. We actually have a couple other questions up top that kind of sec by. Ian, thank you. Any foreign nationals ever joined Sirius? Norwegians or Finns, maybe?
Yeah, we have Norwegians and people from Iceland and from the Faroe Islands have joined also, but they of course have some kind of relation to Denmark, and also native people from Greenland has joined the military. Actually, there was in the first patrol back in 1941. It consists of people from Norway, Denmark, and Greenland.
Oh, cool!
So it's kind of one of the first multinational brigades.
Interesting. T-Bar, thank you. Did Kasper ever fight or train with the Danish Air Force? I worked with them deployed, and they were exceptionally skilled and professional.
Yes, we work a lot with them also because we get supply drops if possible both from the C-130 and also from other types of aircraft. So yeah, we work together with them.
BPA Izzy, thank you very much. We really appreciate it. Alex, thank you. What was the coldest?
Yes, that one.
Oh, you got that one. Okay.
Okay, cool. That's it. Kasper, any final thoughts? Anything to round this out before we go into the bonus segment that you'd like to put out there?
No, I can't really think of it. I think we got all the way around it. So
I just want to say, Kasper, thank you so much for sharing your experiences with us. Like, this is such a unique, kind of like once in a lifetime type of view to have the opportunity to talk to somebody who served in this unit and to hear about these experiences. And I'm not kidding when I think this is maybe the most unique special operations unit out there.
Yeah, we're trying to set up some cooperations with some of the guys from America and also from England and Germany and some of the other countries, because they tend to think the same. And as you said, if there should be some kind of a conflict in the future, Greenland is so big that we need more guys there. So more guys need to be prepared for this kind of environment.
And the United States is trying to, because we understand the importance of the Arctic, or finally we have come to understand the importance of the Arctic. We're trying to train our soldiers to better fight there. And America is never going to really be the experts on Arctic warfare. We need to look at the Danes. We need to look at the Norwegians. We need to look at the Canadians. Those are the guys who really know what they're doing. So it's just the importance of a unit like Sirius Patrol. And we have a lot we can learn from them.
Yeah, one big difference from Sirius and the Canadians and the Swedish and the Norwegians is that there are no trees in Greenland.
Yeah.
So that's a really, really huge difference, because when we go on exercises in Norway, the trees play a really important role in terms of, getting firewood and all kinds of things. You can build a cabin out of wood. You can do all kinds of shit with wood. But when you don't have any trees, it's a completely different ballgame.
Yeah. Kasper, are you working on any kind of, do you have a book in the works at all about your military experience or your leadership?
Anything you want to direct people to?
Yeah.
Yeah, not at the moment, but when I write my book, I will come back to you and ask for a 5 minutes commercial.
Please do.
Yeah,
we'll give you another. We'll give you another whole show to plug your book. Yeah. This is fascinating.
We'd be happy to. So guys, please make sure that you like the video, leave us a comment, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hit that bell icon and select all notifications so you get notified the next time we go live. Next episode, next Friday, we are going to have Chris Hoare on the show. He is the son of Mad Mike Hoare, the infamous Congo mercenary, 5 Commando, way back in the 1960s. And he wrote a biography about his dad. I'm actually reading it right now. We're going to have him on the show next Friday to talk all about it. It's going to be super cool. So hope you'll join us then.
Kasper, thank you again. Yeah. We really appreciate it. We appreciate you taking this time with us and our audience.
Thank you, guys.
All right. See you next time.
Yeah, see you.
Okay, that's it. We're out.